Shalom, my friends. Here's a story about Passover. The story must have happened, I don't know, close to 60 years ago. And I read the story, and the hero of the story is now the rabbi who is Rabbi Kunin, who has established a whole empire of Chabad houses in California. So I really am not intimately familiar with it, but I know that he's a very a very devoted person in general and a very devoted chassid. So but when he was a young man, when he was just learning in the yeshiva before he got married, so he lived in Brooklyn with his parents. I guess his parents lived there. In any case, his parents lived in Brooklyn or nearby Brooklyn, and it was the custom is that people would go by the Lubavitcher Rebbe and receive matzah. They would receive, the Rebbe would hand out matzah, a one full whole matzah to people and to institutions. Sometimes he would give several pieces of matzah, and to like big Chabad houses, he would give even a box of matzah. To Kfar Chabad, for instance, there was always a group that would go and receive matzahs from the Rebbe before Passover. This would happen a few hours before Passover. The Rebbe would, 5 hours, 6 hours, and the Rebbe would hand out the people that lived outside of Israel. Of course, he would give them like the day before or whatever, before their flight. Okay, so his name was Shlomo Kunin. So he went in front of the Rebbe to receive this. He was just a young man. He didn't have any institutions. This was before he established all the institutions that he did in California. And he went in front of the Rebbe to receive a matzah, a piece of matzah. And his intention was to, get a train, go to his parents. His parents lived somewhere in the area of Brooklyn, somewhere in New York there. So he went by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him 3 matzahs. And he said, I want you to go to this address, or he told him to go to the secretary to get an address. Anyway, go to this address and give them these matzahs. Maybe give him 4 matzahs, could be, I don't know. But he gave him several matzahs. He said, go to this address, find this address in the Bronx or something, and give them these matzahs. And good, he understood that the Rebbe wanted him to really hurry up. He really had to hurry up, but he could make it easily. He knew that the subways there. So he would get off and get off the subway, which was not far away from this address. And he would look for the address. He knew vaguely what this place was. He found the address, find the people, give them the matzah like the Rebbe said, and go back home. So we got on the train, and he went, but the train stopped early. There was something wrong with the train. And after about, a half an hour drive or whatever, the train stopped. And they announced that there was something wrong with the train. Of course, this is the train in New York, and the majority of the people in New York are not Jewish. They're not, certainly they're not religious Jews. So, he was the only one that really sort of realized the bad situation he was in. Nobody else really understood. So he got out. He figured, no problem, I'll take a cab. So he went to the nearest cab place, that was another little walk, a half an hour away. And there were no cabs available. There weren't any cabs available. So he waited there for, a while, for 45 minutes or something. There was a cab was supposed to come. Was this cab again? Anyway, it didn't come. So he realized, listen, he figured any second is going to come. So I'll just walk there. He was a young man full of energy. So he walked to this place. It was like, a half an hour, 45-minute walk. He walked, and he had to look around for the address. And finally he found the address. And he knocked on the door. And, it's like 2 hours before Passover. So he knocks on the door, and a man comes to the door with, I guess it was a warm day. Anyway, just like, shorts on and a sleeveless undershirt. And and he looks in, he sees the whole house is in disarray. Usually before Passover, you clean up the house and everything is spick and span. Here, nothing. The whole house is in disarray and there's like bread on the table and everything. So he says, "Is your name such and such?" And the person says, "Yeah." He said, "Well, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent you 3 matzahs." He said, "What? The Lubavitcher Rebbe sent me matzahs? Are you sure the Rebbe sent them to me? This is your name, this is this." He said, "Yeah." Now, this is where I sort of don't remember the story, but this young man, this owner, the house owner, he had been religious once, or he had learned, or his parents were. In any case, he knew what was being spoken about over here, Passover. He said, "In a couple of hours is Passover." "Yeah, I know." He said, "Well, do you have, is the Passover night, are you prepared for the night?" He says, "No, I have a lot of troubles and a lot of this and a lot of difficulties. It's very difficult. You want to come in?" So he goes in and he sees, the house is just like in a catastrophic situation in general. But as far as Passover goes, it's like, how do you say, the opposite of it. The house is supposed to be clean, sterile, and especially from chametz, and there's bread all over the place. So he said, "Listen, do you have one? Do you have, let's drink 4 cups of milk. You drink 4 cups of milk." Because he couldn't drink from the wine. The wine, if a wine that was touched by a non-Jew, or wine has a lot of stringencies about wine. You can't have regular wine. So anyway, so he said, "Okay, let's make a Passover night. Come on, we'll make it." By this time, it was already like an hour before Passover, and he would never be able to get back to his parents' house anyway. So he called his parents up and told them that he was staying there, and they cleaned up the house. His wife cleaned up the house. They all worked together as much as they could. And in the short amount of time that remained, so they cleaned up the house as much as possible. And they put a new, tablecloth on, whatever, and they said, so he noticed that, so they made the Passover Seder. How they got, maybe they drank, water or something, or milk or something for 4 cups. Maybe they didn't drink 4 cups. I don't know how it was, but anyway, they made the Passover Seder. He made the Passover Seder with these people. But he noticed that they had 2 daughters and they were blind. 2 daughters were blind. And he said, "I noticed that your 2 daughters are blind." He says, "Listen, I'm so grateful for you coming and everything. Yes, the 2 daughters are blind. And in fact, my wife is pregnant, and we've arranged for or she wants to make an abortion, because we can't take another blind child. As it is, even just children, it's just hard for us anyway, but we can't take another blind child." And so he said, Rabbi Kunin, they sat for a while, and and he talked to them, and he said, "Are you sure that this is what you want?" "Well, we're not really sure. We don't really want to, but on the other hand, we have no choice. The situation is really very dire, and this." So after the holiday was finished, so Rabbi Kunin told him that I guess maybe he walked to the nearest Chabad. I don't know exactly what he did for the other days. It could be that he walked to his parents' house. It could have been there was a 2-3 hour walk. But in any case, he told him he would be back in touch with him. And so it was after the first 2 days of the holiday, he was back in touch with him. And he got him to write a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and ask for a blessing regarding his 2 blind daughters, and also his wife. And he received an answer almost immediately from the Rebbe that his wife should not make an abortion, that the child will be normal, and with his other 2 children, his other 2 daughters, everything will be fine, and that he should start observing commandments. And so they arranged it with him that he would put a mezuzah on his door, and they taught him about tefillin, or he already knew about tefillin, whatever it is, and they kept kosher. They arranged the house. And sure enough, his wife gave birth, and she gave birth to a normal girl that could see. And the other 2 daughters, they got married to young Jewish boys that could see, that had power of sight. So everything worked out okay. Now, how the Rebbe possibly could have known about this whole situation is the answer is that the Rebbe is like Moses, but here in a more sort of a detailed way. The Rebbe, that's what a Rebbe is. I mean, it's not like a person like me and you. He really feels and is aware of the pain of every Jew in the world, and as much as possible tries to alleviate that pain. And that's the whole idea of Passover, Pesach, that Moses took the Jews out of Egypt. And certainly, without any doubt, the Mashiach will take us out of all of the problems we have now. And the Mashiach is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's it. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is not alive. So the answer to that is that we don't really understand what life and death is, but every Jew is going to rise in the raising of the dead. And there's also a lot of tzaddikim that say that they're not really dead. They really died. There was a story with Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that he was dead. He stopped breathing and everything, and his wife put him in the attic because he had a lot of enemies, and she would yell up questions and he would yell down answers. There's a lot of stories about the great tzaddikim, holy tzaddikim, that they weren't really. They appeared to be dead. They weren't. Elijah the prophet, of course, is a prime case. But in any case, the end of the Maimonides talks about who Mashiach is going to be and what he's going to do. He's going to educate everybody. That's the main thing of Mashiach, is going to educate everybody. And once everyone is educated, it'll be a wholly different world. Just simply speaking, people will rely more on the good of the world than on the negative. And the Jews will all come back to do the Torah. And that'll be an example of morality to the whole entire world. And the idea of morality is not to go to heaven, but rather to make this world, I mean, maybe we'll go to heaven also, but that's not the question at all. The question is to make this world a perfect place, to make this world a productive and blessed place. Like we saw in our story, right? This couple was faced with terrible problems on the face of things, but really deep down, to be revealed potentially, everything came out all right. Everything got all right. And we can even say more, everything was exactly the way it was supposed to have been, even though that's a little bit hard to say, but it certainly is true. So I wish you all a kosher, and a happy Passover. If you want to know what kosher means, go and ask your rabbi. A kosher and a happy Passover, and that we should, just like back then, we went out with big miracles from God, as we'll go out with big miracles now from God. And just like back then, it was by means of Moses, it'll be through the Mashiach, where all the Jews will dance together in Jerusalem with the Holy Temple. Hard to believe, impossible to believe, but true. It's going to happen, no doubt about it. It should have happened a long time ago, and maybe it's happening right now as we're speaking, as we're listening. God bless you all. Have a kosher and a happy Passover, Pesach Kasher v'Sameach with Mashiach now. Yechi Adonenu Moreno Rabbeinu Melech Mashiach L'Olam. Long live the Rebbe, King Mashiach. Shalom u'bracha. Chag Sameach.